sort of say, guys, remember, cameras on, cameras off, hands up, hands down, etc. Mute yourselves. But what I'm going to do is just run through it officially, if that's okay, just so everybody understands sort of how the meeting is run and how you actually chair it, etc., if that's okay. So just reminding everybody of the hybrid protocol, because we've got some colleagues online and we've got colleagues in-house as well. So any councillor, lay member or co-opter who's joining the committee on remote, joining us remotely must remember to keep your camera on, but keep yourself muted, please. If you wish to speak, put your virtual hand up, and I'll be mindful, as well as my lady to my left who helps me enormously. Keep an eye out for those hands going up to bring you into the conversation, guys, okay? And for attendees in the chamber, again, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand, because we haven't got the microphones, we're not in the chamber, etc. Please raise your hand and I'll invite you in to speak then, if that's okay. Officers, obviously, same protocol. Those of you who initially make some comments, and I know our cabinet member does, but then if you wish to make any comments, just give me some direction. That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, we're not actually voting in this meeting today, so just at the time of the start of the meeting and making sure that we are all present, cameras on, etc. Have you started recording, Jane? Yeah. So everybody's accepted, so that's okay. And we'll now officially start the meeting. So, Prynawn da pawb, welcome all to the Aspirational Scrutiny Committee here on Monday the 2nd of March. Please note that the meeting may be recorded and broadcast on the authority's internet site. Image and sound recording may also be used for training purposes. So I'm going to go on to agenda number 1, apologies for absence.
Jeff Beard.
Jeff Beard, I think, otherwise we've got a full house.
Okay. From Hannah.
Oh no, Hannah. Yeah, okay, I'll just note Hannah. She may join us shortly. Okay. And as I did mention to some of those who were able to meet me in the pre-meet last week, I'd like to welcome our 3 new co-opted members. So to my right, we've got Paul Jones, and Paul is a Governor Association rep. Katie Barrett, give us a little wave, Katie. She's online, if she can hear me. There she is. She's our primary rep. And Morgan, who's with me in the room today, is our secondary rep as well. Morgan Howell, it's lovely to see you all again. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining the committee. Agenda item number 2 are declarations of interest. So I'll just pause there to see if there are any declarations of interest. No? Okay. Agenda items 3 and 4 are minutes of the previous meeting. So inevitably you'll have the meeting for the 5th of January. And then, as you know, our Cabinet Member for Finance met us on the 2nd of February regarding a special meeting on our budget. So I just need to approve the accuracy of those minutes. So could somebody just propose that those minutes are accurate, please?
I'll propose.
Thank you, Clive. Could somebody second? Anyone? Thank you, David. Okay, so they're proposed and seconded and accepted. And then agenda item number 5 are our action logs. I'm pleased to say that finally the action logs from the previous meeting are completed. I'm looking to my cabinet member when I say that, because he and I were a little bit naughty in delaying one of them. We did finally get round to it, and thank you, Gareth, for then sending that on our behalf to the Minister for them to take note and reply to us. So thank you, Gareth. Okay, so we move on to the main agenda item then, that's attendance in schools. And to take us through this report is our Cabinet Member, Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. So this report provides an update on school attendance across primary and secondary schools in Merthyr Tydfil, along with information on how grant funding is used to support improvements. It explains that attendance remains a key priority for the local authority, because as we know, good attendance is strongly linked to learning, well-being and future life chances. The work is guided by Welsh Government frameworks, including the All Wales Attendance Framework and the Belonging, Engaging and Participating Guidance, which aims to ensure consistent and high-quality approaches to attendance. So looking back over recent years, attendance has generally improved. Primary schools have seen steady rises from 2021 onwards, while secondary attendance has also improved overall despite a fall in 23-24. Although the position has strengthened, Merthyr has remained around 18th out of the 22 Welsh local authorities, and attendance continues to sit below the national average. Persistent absenteeism, however, was improving by the end of 23-24, with fewer pupils falling below the older 80% threshold. More recent Welsh Government data for 24-25 shows a more encouraging picture. Secondary attendance has risen to 88.8%, moving Merthyr Tydfil to 16th place and significantly narrowing the gap between the local figure and the Welsh average. Primary attendance has improved to 92%, though still slightly below the national figure. Autumn term data for 25-26 indicates that primary attendance has risen again, while secondary has dipped very slightly. Illness, long-term holidays, and increasing anxiety, mental health, and complex social needs remain the most common reasons for absence. Persistent absenteeism, which is now defined as attendance below 90%, has reduced in both primary and secondary settings compared with last year. The report highlights that families continue to take holidays during term time and that some pupils experience wider health or social issues that impact their ability to attend. Even so, early signs this year show that persistent absence is moving in the right direction, and staff from the Education Welfare Service are working closely with schools with higher levels of persistent absence to analyse data, review processes, and agree targeted actions. There are several examples in the report that show how different projects and approaches are making a difference. One initiative supports pupils struggling with mental health barriers by providing a structured online programme combined with family engagement and wellbeing support. Many of the pupils involved now attend regularly and are progressing well with their GCSEs. Another project delivered with Mind is helping pupils with emotional-based school avoidance, already showing improvements in attendance and wellbeing. And schools themselves have been highlighted. For example, Avon Taff High School's developed strong attendance monitoring and early response systems, while Gwaenffarran Primary School demonstrates consistent, proactive communication with parents and has the highest attendance rate of any school across the country. Children looked after are also being monitored closely. Their attendance remains slightly lower than that of their peers, but each child has dedicated officers, regular reviews, and multi-agency support to address any emerging concerns. The use of FPN and fixed penalty notices has increased significantly, and Merthyr Tydfil issued the third number of highest in Wales in 24-25. A large majority of pupils whose families received an FPN showed improved attendance afterwards, and grant funding from Welsh Government has helped to strengthen attendance work moving forward, including supporting additional staff in secondary schools and the pupil referral unit. These roles focus on family engagement, home visits, integration plans, and tracking progress. There are early signs of positive impact, with notable improvements in attendance in both settings. Another new project is working with families who have 3 or more persistently absent children, offering coordinated whole of family support, though it is early days in order to judge the outcomes. Every autumn, schools complete an attendance self-evaluation audit, which helps them identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas for focused work. The local authority reviews these in detail and provides tailored feedback to ensure practice is consistent and robust. In conclusion, the report sets a clear ambition that Merthyr Tydfil should at least match the Welsh average for attendance. Meeting this ambition will require continued high expectations and aspirational target setting. The next steps focus on building on existing good practices, using data more effectively, targeting persistent absenteeism, strengthening cluster approaches, maximising the impact of grant funding, and maintaining consistent guidance and statutory procedures. Finally, the report notes that this work directly contributes to the Raising Aspirations, Raising Standards strategy, particularly on collaboration, recovery and supporting wellbeing. And it also supports the wider wellbeing goals of creating an aspirational and healthy Merthyr Tydfil. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you for giving us that overview. It's really, really helpful, actually, especially to look at some of those other projects that are taking place as well. And can I just say, forgive me, it was really remiss of me, but I welcomed our 3 new co-opting members. But officers, can you introduce yourselves? I do apologise, because for our new co-opted members, they're probably thinking, now maybe we recognise Sue and Gav, maybe, but who are the others who are sat opposite us or via you guys online? So would you mind just introducing yourselves?
So I'm Sue Walker, I'm the Director of Education.
Hi, I'm Gavin Metheringham. I'm Head of ALN and Inclusion.
Adele Peel, Senior Education Welfare Officer.
Hello, Sarah Pennell, ALM Manager.
And we've got one officer online as well. Bronwyn, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. I was sat there thinking, it's all well and good because lots of us do know you all very well, but our new co-opted members may not be so familiar. Thank you guys for that. Gareth, as I said, thank you for taking us through that report. Colleagues, I'm going to open it up now for any questions for our officers or our cabinet member. Has anybody got any questions in relation to
Yes,
this?
please. So on attendance, have we had it? I noticed that we'd improved across the board, but on the specifics, have we had any schools that were failing, that were not meeting good attendance, and that have turned it around? And if we do have any that fall into that category over the last 12 months, what have they been doing to remedy that? And if that is the case, how do we share best practice? Sorry, there's so much in there, but
Examples of good practice from a failing position and how that's
turning around, yeah.
Dale, do you want to comment on that? That's a tricky one because we've got schools that are generally, I wouldn't say we've had any schools that are failing.
Yeah.
We've had schools with lower attendance. So if maybe we think about schools that have got lower attendance where we've seen improvements, and then I'll pick up the next steps from there.
Yeah. So with the schools that have had lower attendance, we've put in sort of targeted support with regards to those schools then. So we've had a look at the data and specifically around particular year groups. And then we've done the targeted support there. We've got one particular school which has been very, very low really. So they've bought into our service, plus they've got targeted support as well. So that targeted support is looking at more wellbeing and reintegration plans, and that's been ongoing for about 2 years now. And their attendance, we've gone in and had a look at their processes. So there wasn't a particular sort of strong graduated response. There wasn't a particular strong sort of attendance policy in place. So we've had a look at that, worked through that with them then, and given some sort of actions going forward on how they can tighten up their processes. And the same with staff, looked at making sure that the staff are well aware of our statutory involvement, what we do, how we can support, looking at how they can do sort of the attendance registers and making sure that they're aware of all the codes and reasons for absence, and making sure that they've got really good links then with parents. So it's about sort of promoting that. So our staff have gone in and sort of helped them with that, and we've seen a really good sort of increase with that as well. We've got one school which is really good, sort of got best practice, which is highlighted in the report as well, so that their processes and responses and how they work with regards to attendance has been shared then across all schools to ensure that they're sort of all aware and they've got a more sort of collaborative approach.
So is there much of a difference with the school that's really good? Is there much of a difference in the attendance with that school and like the average? Is there much of a difference? Is it significant in terms of like what the percentages are?
About 3-4%. Yes, yeah. The one school is a primary school, which is good. Is the best in the cluster, and then we've got other schools behind it then that are, say, about 2 or 3% lower.
Oh, great. So what I'm trying to find out is, have we had a situation in the last, say, 2 or 3 years where we've had a school that's doing less well with attendance, and then they've implemented things that are different to the rest of the cluster or the rest of the authority, and they've turned it around? I don't mind. I just generally don't know. Do we have anyone like a turnaround success? Sorry.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to in that school, or is that not something we can do here? Or?
Probably not name, but I'm happy to provide information after.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful, because I think what Morgan's looking at, if I may, Morgan, if that's right, is basically, you know, where they've put some sort of intervention in or something. I'm just thinking of my own children, you know, where there was a reward scheme and then I did not hear the end of it. They have to be in school and on time, etc., because the reward scheme happened. And I know over the years we felt that sometimes they weren't actually a positive thing, they were actually becoming a negative thing. So we changed our strategies, didn't we? But I think that's where you're coming from, Morgan, isn't it? Is to find out, you know, if there was one which is, you know, those 3-4% differences, as Adele has stated, and then they did something to actually make that big difference.
So there are some.
Yeah. No, can I go? I'm just saying, if you want to share, no, sorry, no, it's fine. If you want, and it's difficult when we're in like this, isn't it? But if you want to share that with us, that would be great. So we can take a look at it and post them.
If I just share some themes, though, some of the things that we do. So one key piece of information for us is that we don't review attendance annually. It's a constant process.
I see.
So where on a fortnightly, monthly basis we see attendance dipping, whatever the reasons, it might be a significant illness within the year group or across the school, or it might be holidays, or whatever that reason might be. We'll look at it and there'll be discussions with the school. So within the education welfare team, there are a number of education welfare officers. And when Adele referenced those that buy in, it's an SLA agreement with schools that they can contract with us so that we'll provide that extra capacity. They'll then work with the schools in terms of meeting with parents. Adele will work with the school in terms of looking at their processes, policy, practice. And then crucially for us is and the one example I'm thinking of is where attendance was not as it should be. We were able to bring an attendance officer from another school just to work with that school around how they monitored attendance, how they then responded to it, how they looked at the data maybe more effectively in terms of not just sort of a number on a page, but actually, okay, what are the themes that are being generated from that? Did you want to jump in?
No, so yes. So what I'm interested in is how we share best practice. You've answered that. So one tool that we use as a local authority, as a borough, is we send an attendance officer, and they can share better practice from one place. They can cross-pollinate.
We do that from the local authority centre, but we'll also engage with schools to do it school to school, because we know actually best practice school to school is most effective.
Yeah.
And so that took place. Enhanced monitoring, so the audit is an effective tool. Then it depends on the time of year that the audit is run, because that is annual, but sometimes those things coincide. And then particularly around persistent absenteeism, that's where Adele gets far more involved in terms of visiting, looking at the data with the school, trying to come up with the action points for the school, and then holding them to account about those.
That's great. May I ask something else?
Yeah, of course you can.
Why is it, and this is no blame you, just wondering, why is it that we were sitting 18th and around is there any reason? Is it just demographic, or, you know, why is it that we're down there?
Contextually, we've sat 21 or 22. I think we've had.
So we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that, so when I look at it, we're all looking for sustained improvement.
Yeah.
What we've seen is a bit of a spiky profile. Well, historically, what we've seen is not a spiky profile, it's just low.
Yeah.
Schools have worked incredibly hard, and we've worked really hard with schools. And it's, for a couple of years, maybe over the last 4, it's kind of blipped up and it's blipped back down again. I think 3 years ago we were 17th, 18th or something, and then it went back down to 21. We're up to 16. And there's some real signs even this year now, we're half of the way through the academic year, that will be sustainable. So what we're looking for is sustained improvement, getting us close up to the Welsh average.
Promise last question.
No, Morgan, you can ask questions.
So from the report that you shared there, there must be a significant difference in first place within the 22 and around the bottom place. Is it? I don't know. I'm asking you. Is it?
It's not as big as you'd think. No. Actually, when you look at the difference between, say, for example, I think it was 13th and 16th.
Yes.
It was like 0.1.
Okay.
And so you kind of go, if we only just had a little less.
It's like this season's Champions League. There's nothing in it.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I'm just wondering, what do we do to get to 1? I mean, that gives us hope that we can get to 1. How do we cross-pollinate to get to 1? You know, that would be my question. What is it that that we're not doing that one is doing,
Yeah.
and we get the 6 or whatever, you know? But
Yeah.
are there any things that could save us a couple more percentage points that we could, and then plug in the heads to be able to engage with each other?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the end of the report with the next steps,
Yeah.
they're really where we're at in terms of continuing that sustained improvement. So that is things like how schools use data, how we work with schools, how we use grant funding effectively, how we partner with other agencies. I think historically, attendance was just a school thing. Well, we're all very clear now that actually attendance is more than just an education thing. It's a family thing, societal thing. Some of the things that impact upon attendance at school, nothing to do with school. And so it's how we work with children's services, how we work with community-focused schools, how community-focused schools work with community groups. It's that network. And so if you see in the report some of the examples around Mind, in terms of the work we're piloting with Avatar and BCA, in terms of some of the quite original actually work that we're doing where we're identifying. So there's a good example. If I can just yeah. So the example in the report where we're identifying 3 children within one home that have got difficulties with attendance.
Mm-hmm.
By focusing on that family, we're basically impacting 3 pupils. They may be in the same school, they may be in different schools, but it's absolutely economy of scale in that sense. And that's a really, it's early days, but our sense is that there's real impact to be made from that approach that we want to expand greatly. Now we've targeted particular groups around that piece of work because if you don't target it right, you're not necessarily you're banging against a very closed door. So where we feel that actually attendance can improve and hasn't, then that's where that piece of work comes in. So we're always looking at where we can use experience and skill sets within schools to cross-pollinate and to improve practice in other schools. We're looking at how we can, with our education welfare service, impact from the corporate centre, and also how we can then use grant funding effectively to impact. I think one of the interesting things is we've seen secondary attendance. We've had a lot of focus on secondary attendance, and it's been necessary.
Yeah.
And we're pushing closer to the Welsh average, and I'm hoping that will continue. But what if you look at the gap then in primary, the gap, it's closed, but it hasn't closed as much on the Welsh average. So whilst our focus has been particularly around secondary, we just got to be mindful actually that we've got to see some of that work going on in primary as well. A couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, we had a clear focus around primary. That included vending machines with books and all sorts of approaches that were very, very effective. So we need to start combining the two so that they all contribute to the whole. And that's where we'll see that sustained improvement.
Thank you.
I think we've much, like you said, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've so obviously the reasons have changed now with regards to absences. Yes, we've always had high illness and medical, and that's always going to be there. And then there's asking the schools then to have an appropriate challenge with regards to those absences. But there's a lot more now of environmental and mental health. Mental health has really increased quite a lot. So we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years with engaging with various agencies to try and sort of support them. So we get better now at speaking to other agencies, collaborating, and making sure the appropriate referrals have gone out to those various agencies so the support can be put there for families, as I said, as a whole, rather than just looking at the one pupil. So it's more of a well-being and family approach.
Yeah.
And that's how we've tried to sort of use our grant funding as well, as looking at the well-being, looking at reintegration plans.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got a lot of entrenched cases in the secondaries, which is why the secondaries are down, especially around transition and around looking at options use as well. We find a big drop off there. So it's how we can support those pupils, because they're in year 9, they've got another 2 years to go. The stress around their options, and then obviously they're at that age where it is that sort of environmental pressure and mental health and things. So we are looking at making sure that we got the right support then with regards to pushing them then in the last sort of 2 years of school. So we are getting a lot better at that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks
I
for
have
that.
another point.
Yeah.
Just I can't actually remember whether it's in the report. We've generally included it in previous years that we don't look at attendance in isolation as a local authority. That 22 out of 22 local authorities are in the same position where everyone's attendance has dropped post-COVID, and we're all looking for the magic wand somewhat. So we're constantly having discussions with other local authorities. You're involved with the national network to say, okay, where is their good practice? Welsh Government did a piece of work where they tried to bring all that together. And the real overriding conclusion of that was that where additional funding is brought to bear and additional staffing is available, then you can start chipping away at some of those wider issues around emotional avoidance and those kind of things. But just to add in that we look far beyond ourselves in terms of how can we see improvements. We look to our neighbours, we look nationally, we look across the border, and basically anywhere there's information that might be relevant and would contextually fit.
Good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because you're going to come to you, and then Rob will come to you now. No problem.
With regards to attendance, obviously there's significant improvements. Is there significant improvements working with the children or targeting the families, as in the parents?
Oh, you'd be a better place to answer that.
There is improvements now with working with the parents and families as a whole, because we've been able to use the grant funding to really target in that work now, especially in one secondary school. We have seen, I think it's in the report, a really good improvement with Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, where we've done work around families as whole, as that sort of wellbeing approach. But also then, because the staff were based at the school when the pupils were coming in, they had that sort of contact as well. So there was good improvement in supporting them in school. But it is improvements in sort of that engagement, because we do find historically lack engagement with parents. By using that grant funding, that targeted work, we have been able to put more support in the families.
Okay, thank you. Rob.
Yes, can I preface my question by just sort of, thanks for your last remarks there, Gavin, about the wider picture, because I think that's helpful. You're suggesting that this sort of working together across boundaries and across Wales, and perhaps even into England,
Australia, really wherever there's practice,
Well, okay, so and the report itself, in the indications of good work. Why wouldn't you report good work if you're reporting on yourself? But my question is on the coming from a broader background, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this. My experience in local authority working on in this area, or in support of this education in this area, is more than 20 years ago. Now, looking at the table on page 17, Monmouthshire, average percentage of sessions present, 92. They're the top. So you can see, as indicated earlier, that the 22 are pretty close together. But 92, perhaps I'm wrong, but 20 years ago...
No, you're right. It's low, isn't it?
92 would have been bottom.
When you think that the new threshold for persistent absenteeism is 90. There's only, last year, I think there was quite a few local authorities that had an average below 90%. The year before. Last year, it was just the one Carmarthenshire. But yeah, everybody's seen a reduction.
Yes, and there are reasons why. I would think that that's an area of work, and obviously it's not one for this local authority, but it needs more work all round in that context of going together. So that's the background. But on actual questions, what I noted is, if you look at that table on page 17, and then there's another one on page 22, I think it is, and it's been reported that here in Merthyr Tydfil, we're pretty keen on dishing out the parking tickets. Or the, sorry, the vacant
Probably are, but that's probably a different scrutiny.
there's a desk there, there's nobody there giving us tickets, answers on. So we've done pretty well. And I hear that seems to have been good. But if you look at the table across Wales, actually you'll see that those there are 5 authorities who didn't issue any fixed penalty limits, and they are not at the bottom. In fact, a couple of them are right up near the top for good attendance. So that's
It's a really good example.
Something.
If you look at the one that's bottom on the table on 5.25, they're also at the bottom in terms of local authority.
That's right.
It's an interesting connection between fixed penalty notices and attendance, that it's quite a mixed bag across the country.
Yes.
In terms of impact, so when we look at it, we draw the line between, okay, this is how many schools have asked us to issue, and then we say, what is the impact of that? Because ultimately, that's the important bit. And I think this is the first year that we've done that piece of work, because I think it came out, Chair, from Scrutiny last year.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
There was a question around it.
Yeah.
And so we looked at the data. It took a member of Adele's team to just go through every line and then draw those averages out. And it was encouraging to see that actually it does make an impact. Now, in some other local authorities, it may make more of an impact or less. We don't know, because there's no national data around that.
That's a piece of work that we are looking at now, though, is looking at other LAs with high attendance and see how they're working with FPNs and what impact that has, to sort of look at us to ensure good practice sharing and things and moving forward. So that's something we look at.
And then don't worry about a visit to Australia, but a visit to Carmarthen to find out why you out 22 out of 22, but also you've issued 0 VPNs. So it's
So we say no to Australia.
well, I don't know, Gav. No, that's not. I'm looking at my cabinet members and financing that for you. Chair will be happy to join you on that field visit. Let's just note that. Before I come to Morgan, Rob, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, there was just one other question that's sort of just really sort of come to me, that in the work that we do, chasing up parents of absent pupils and absent pupils themselves, back in the day, there was examples I recall of when officers were out there on the street and saying, "Why are you?" Nowadays, it would be outside, the supermarket probably. Why are you not in the school? Why are all those other parking spaces for parent and child filled?
Years ago, you used to do that,
And
more recently,
one of the surveys I recall, which was that why were most kids out and about? What was their excuse, or the parents' excuse? Oh, taking them shopping. And that's sort of struck with me. And if what you're saying is, Gavin, that that's still the case, it seems there's work on the as well as the granular efforts, one by one and family by family, but also far wider on why kids don't want to go to school, or parents are happy to let them stay home.
But we do find parental attitudes now have changed massively and they condone in absences. So that is something that we're up against quite a lot. More from primary, because obviously secondary pupils will vote with their feet, and parents would send them, they don't go in, and that's more to do and see. But that is what we are finding now.
I don't feel it should pass unnoticed that actually, there are these wider societal issues, economic issues, whatever they are, internet issues. I think we shouldn't not be afraid of sort of recognising that and saying, right, we've got to hold our hand up. Next door, what about you? So that's something, so that it's addressed.
Yeah, no, absolutely wrong. And some very valid points made there as well. Morgan, did you want to come in on one of those points made? Yeah, fire away.
The point that Rob made about the contradictory nature of some of the research around some of the local authority success or lack of correlation when applying fines. What research have we conducted around the impact of the fines on the cost of living crisis that has kind of coalesced around us, particularly in our demographic in the last few years?
It is on families through the issuing of the fine. I don't think we've got that data. Do you want to just briefly explain the process in terms of schools' involvement and then?
Oh no, I'm cool.
Oh, you're cool. Okay, fine.
Thank you. But I'm just wondering if we've done.
We haven't in education.
Oh, just wondering.
Yeah. Okay. I think, maybe it's something that we can look at, and I know there is some leeway in discussion always between the head and the family to try and, intervene and support. Because our schools, as you know, as governors as well, our schools know our families very, very well, and there may be some underlying issues there, but I know that they try and do all they can as well before they go down that road. And
we do say it's up to the discretion of the schools, of the head teachers. They know their families to look at it case by case. It's not a blanket approach. It's not the Welsh Government guidance states it should never be a blanket approach. Looking at whether fine goes to both parents or one parent. So there's lots. The Welsh Government guidelines does state quite heavily of lots of.
I was just interested if there's any research on the impact on the children. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, Clive.
I'm just going to ask, when these fixed penalty notices come in, what percentage of people pay them? Is it sort of strictly enforced, or?
If they don't pay, so when the fixed penalty notice fine is issued, it's issued at £120, and then the family have 28 days. If they pay within the first 28 days, it's halved at £60, but they have 42 days to pay. And if they don't pay, it automatically goes to a prosecution, because it's obviously an absence. There's a period of complaint and absence. And then that will go down our normal sort of Education Act route, and we will go forward with the prosecution. We do get more paying than don't pay. I couldn't tell you. I think most do pay. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many, but with that percentage that doesn't, then we do enforce that by going down the prosecution route. So obviously we make families aware. We make sure that the schools say in their attendance policies that it's all set out. We've got our fixed penalty code of conduct, exactly what the process is, exactly what it is, what's expected. There's no appeal. It is a fine, and then obviously you could end up then in the prosecution arena then if it's not paid. It is up to the courts then on what obviously, it's a fine again. It is up to the courts then as to listening to their reasoning for the absence and for not paying and taking the income into account then when they are in the magistrates' courts, and then a fine is imposed then.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Clive. Yeah, Rob.
Could I just reiterate it? Could we put it forward as a point that what the wider work and that we feel that needs to be addressed, and would presumably first we go to the Welsh Government, or perhaps to the local government association, or whatever, to suggest that more work is needed.
Yeah. Okay, I'll note that down now. Thank you, colleagues. David Isaac.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Did I hear correctly? There is no appeal towards the fine, and why is this?
Yes, that's right. Yes, it is in the Welsh Government guidance that there isn't an appeal to a fine. Obviously, we do get a lot of parents ringing us, because they're not in agreement with the fine, with being imposed the fine. But as long as the fine is imposed correctly by that it meets our threshold then and our criteria, with regards to the guidance in our code of conduct, which we vote from the Welsh Government guidance, then it will carry on and go forward. We will look at withdrawing fines if there are circumstances that arise after the fine has been sent. For example, if the parent can give evidence of medical absence, and then obviously the school has not coded that, then, you know, because they didn't have the absence at the time, or other sort of exceptional circumstances. But more often than not, we won't withdraw the fine. And then it is up to the parent then, if it does go to court, for them to present their evidence there, and then it's looked at the court.
Yeah, I've always come back to this example. Would you issue a fine to somebody whose parents are either in the emergency services or the military, that Christmas they were out serving abroad, and their only chance to take their child away would be when their service is over, their tour of duty is over, so they come home on leave, and then they take their child away for a holiday that they didn't have. Well, most of the general public had Christmas off. This person was, say, on the front lines, and as we're aware, military action is taking place all over the world at the moment. Would we be looking at fining parents for doing that?
We would have a discussion with the school as to whether they would deem that as an exceptional circumstance. Obviously, we do look at frontline workers, doctors, nurses, as you said, forces, police, and if the employers do state then that is the only time that they can take their break, then yes, we would take that into consideration and would advise the school not to fine. It is on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, can we just clarify exactly what Rob is asking?
Yeah, so I think Rob, shall I give an overview of what I think you're asking? You can always correct me if I'm wrong then as well. But I think it's some of those additional interventions needed post-COVID, as you were talking about, some of those wider concerns you've got with absenteeism, where perhaps, Welsh Government or WLGA should be offering, well, not WLGA, but Welsh Government should be offering additional support, because we're seeing an increase in those support services needed. Do I get you as right, Rob, there, or have I gone way off the line?
No, I think that, but even that is sort of too narrow. I'm not suggesting that we go and say to the Welsh Government, this is your problem, you come up with the answers for everyone. But it's rather that isn't this another area where we need review, investigation, inquiry into what's going wrong?
Yeah.
And it may be that this is just a part of a wider look at education and schools' practices, but that rather than just say, oh, it's okay, we're working to Welsh Government rules, and they must know what they're doing. As I say, the overwhelming evidence of Gavin's supported what my understanding is that school attendance is massively down over a period of a couple of decades. I think we know this. So what are we as society and the local authority and local authorities and education authorities? They should be raising concerns, perhaps putting forward ideas. But so there is some sort of look at why this is happening.
Yeah.
And my personal view would be that any such review, nor inquiry, you need to get a lot of views of kids and parents, because it's only that way.
Yeah, as to what are the reasons behind it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we'll put it down as an action, but it's something we'll need to discuss just wider, because inevitably, Gareth sits on an education group with the WLGA, Gareth, don't you? So it may be a discussion there just when you meet. It's in support of, obviously, the local authority in addressing some of these concerns, or whether it is, again, something that you and I jointly do together, Gareth. So we'll note it down and we'll just take it forward as to what that narrative will actually look like. Soon we'll share that with you and Gavin and Adele then, so you can contribute to that dialogue as well. Is that okay? Yeah.
And what you said.
And what I said, yes, it is those way things. Thank you. I can't see any other hands up for questions, so we'll move on to comments. And if you may indulge me, I'll just make some comments myself as well, if that's okay. So, well, look, firstly, you must be commended because there is some positive news within the report as far as those percentage increases. And it goes back to Morgan's point earlier, you know, sometimes it can be 0.8%, you know, difference, and we could be 16th or, you know, or even 5th, etc. So the margins are so small. But, you know, I really just want to recognise that. And within the body of the report, the case studies that we have in there as well, you know. So, and I think that we can continue some work on maybe looking at those VPNs, FPNs. I'm going down the car park route as well now with Robert. I'm talking about IT, FPNs, etc., and whether there is any sort of correlation between that. But I was just going to make a suggestion, and Morgan and Alona may not agree with this, but we'll see. But as children's champion for the borough, I have a very close working relationship with MT Boyth. MT Boyth is Merthyr Tydfil Borough-wide Youth Forum. So inevitably, you as officers are doing as much as you can with our other partners as well to improve attendance. But one thing that they recently worked on, which was I wish I had as a parent when my children were transitioning from school, was some wonderful videos that they've shared now with year 6s transitioning into year 7, and they're fun as well as being very informative. And, you know, even as a parent or a young child, you get to see the school through the eyes of MT Boyth, and it just gives you that feeling of, oh, okay, this isn't as frightening as it is, and it's really good video. The other one is the one that the team did with some pupils from Cyfarthfa High, and that was about mental health and well-being and the new room and the support that they put together, and there was a great video about that as well. And again, coming from a parent, but that would if I was having a child going into Cyfarthfa High, or have one at Cyfarthfa High now, which I don't, but I'm just expressing, it's reassuring. And I'm just wondering both, and Morgan's not looking at me over there, but whether you and the officers could have a sit down and chat at some point. I'm not saying you can do this because it comes down to funding for MT Boyth as well, but whether there's an opportunity in the future for us to look at doing an attendance video. You know what I mean? Similar themes to what we did for transition and the mental health and well-being. You know, speaking to the young people and the parents of why attendance is so important. We've endeavoured to do it over the years, 7 ways, the local authority, etc. And you're still continuing to trying to get that messaging through. But I just wonder whether MT Boyth can come up, and they may have the magic wand, Gav, and save us a trip to Australia or not, but they may have the magic wand because it comes from the young people about their experiences. So can I just make that as a suggestion for you to pick up on that? You know,
we'd welcome that.
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, the work that they do is really good, and I just think it may be worthwhile looking at that just to support you guys even more with the work that they do. So apologies for diving in. I just wanted to make that point. Anybody got any?
Let's make another comment. You mentioned there the Children's Commissioner for Wales is actively addressing the issues relating to children's attendance in schools. She's actually launched an attendance audit to understand the experiences of children who struggle. So I think there is something that we can link in with the work that she's doing to do that. So
of course. I wouldn't expect that we alone are suddenly
it's having that.
There is work already being done in various.
It's having that collective voice, isn't it? Yeah. Any other comments or observations from my colleagues? No. Okay, well, in that case, Adele, thank you so much. Gav, thank you. I think you're staying anyway. I was going to say, there's no letting you go now. Adele, are you staying with us as well, or are you leaving? Oh, bless her. And then you could go. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us for Scrutiny this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Just to note for my colleagues, the purpose of the report was to be discussed and noted, and then for members to consider any other aspects of attendance we wish to scrutinise. Well, undoubtedly, we do that when I come to reflection in a further agenda item on the meeting, but I think just some of those key points noted, the attendance audit with the Commissioner, will pick up on that as well. And then a discussion for Gareth and I to have on taking forward some of the points that we've made today on additional work. And MT Byth, I'll get a phone call later now. Okay, thank you, Adele, appreciate it. Colleagues, we're going to move on to agenda item number 7, and that is our additional learning needs report. And Gareth, I believe it's back to you.
Yeah, thank you once again, Chair. This annual report to Scrutiny provides an overview of additional learning needs in Merthyr Tydfil, covering the work of the Educational Psychology Service, Specialist Provision, ALN funding, the early years sector, post-16 pathways, professional learning, and the progress made in supporting children and young people with additional needs. The ALNED Act and the ALN Code set the legal framework for how schools, the local authority and partners support learners with additional needs. Over recent years, and particularly throughout the implementation of the new ALN system, the number of pupils with identified needs has grown, not only in volume but also in complexity. This has increased pressure on schools and local authority resources, but the report emphasises that despite the pressure, there is evidence of effective practice across the system. ESTIN inspection findings for the 24-25 academic year were positive, with no concerns raised about ALN. Across primary, secondary and special settings, ESTIN highlighted early identification, well-planned support, strong partnership working and effective teaching that enables pupils with ALN to make expected progress or indeed better progress. Schools were praised for bespoke support, high quality learning resource bases, strong transition arrangements and inclusive cultures that help pupils feel safe, supported and able to thrive. An internal audit of ALN arrangements in 2024 provided substantial assurance, confirming the systems, governance and processes are robust and are operating effectively. The ALN team has strengthened its staffing structure and continues to oversee statutory decision making through the weekly ALN panel and early years panel, as well as quality assuring individual development plans and ensuring person-centred practice is firmly embedded. Professional learning remains a strength. Schools have received training across a wide range of evidence-based areas, from trauma-informed practice to sensory needs, positive behaviour support, loss and bereavement, precision teaching and emotional literacy. Quality of training is consistently rated to be high, and feedback shows the staff are applying learning directly to improve pupil outcomes. The Education Psychology Service continues to be fully staffed and has increased its role in systemic work, staff supervision, consultation and direct support to learners. Monitoring shows positive impact, with schools describing the service as responsive, knowledgeable and child-centred, and both pupils and adults reporting very high levels of satisfaction and improved understanding. In early years, a strong model of collaboration ensures early identification of ALN, high quality transition processes, close partnership with health services and the continued success of the coach provision for very young people with complex social communication needs. Post-16 support is strengthened through the establishment of new multi-agency forums focused on transition into further education, including placements at specialist institutions. This work is helping to ensure learners with ALN move into appropriate pathways with the right support in place. The report also highlights the authority's high levels of investment in ALN. Merthyr Tydfil spends more per pupil on ALN than any other council in Wales and delegates more funding per pupil directly to schools. A review of the funding model has increased clarity, improved stability for schools and ensured that delegation rates are now consistent with national expectations. Particularly impactful development has been the partnership of the Nordorf and Robbins to provide music therapy across LRBs, Tydfil and Greenfield School. Sessions have delivered strong emotional, social and communication benefits for pupils with high satisfaction levels, positive feedback with children, staff and family. The report also identifies the sufficiency of specialist provision. Demand for specialist placements has grown significantly, particularly at Greenfield School. Additional investment has invested capacity and a new school is planned for 2029. And several new learning resource bases have opened recently, with further reviews underway in both primary and secondary to ensure provision keeps pace with need. Community-focused schools has also contributed significantly to ALN support. A wide range of engagement opportunities from coffee mornings to transition programs, carers, fairs and quieter community sessions has strengthened communication between families and schools. And looking ahead, the ambition is for Merthyr Tydfil to continue developing inclusive provision so that all children and young people are supported effectively through their learning journey. The local authority aims to ensure that ALN are fully embedded and that specialist provision is sufficient, that ALN leadership continues to grow across settings and that workforce remains confident in meeting learners' needs. Next steps focus on strengthening communication with families, expanding community-based engagement, increasing multi-agency collaboration and acting on outcomes of specialist provision reviews, ensuring appropriate capacity at Greenfield School and continued joint work with health partners to meet medical and therapeutical needs. The work outlined in this report contributes directly to the Raising Aspirations, Raising Standards strategy and supports the well-being objectives of creating an aspirational and healthier Merthyr Tydfil. Finally, I do want to acknowledge the recent protest that took place outside the Civic Centre, where parents, carers and children gathered to raise concern about ALN support. I, alongside other councillors, including our chair Lisa, met with a number of parents to listen directly to their experiences. Families made it clear they want clearer communication, greater transparency and a stronger working relationship with the council. Their voices have been heard and we remain committed to building trust, improving engagement and ensuring every child with ALN receives the support they deserve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Gareth, and thank you for acknowledging that as well, because I think it's so important today. For some of our newer members as well, this ALN report was already on our forward work plan, so it wasn't something that was instigated because of recent sort of social media attention, and because of that. However, we do thank the families for coming and expressing some of their concerns to us, but it was on the agenda, so that in support of this and the work that the officers have done will hopefully alleviate some of those concerns, Gareth. So thank you for that, appreciate it. Okay, we'll move straight into questions on the report then, if anybody has them. Rob?
Yes, I'm not trying to get in first, but on first of all, the jaw-dropping moment for me in this report was when it came on to music therapy.
Yeah.
Because while everything that's said in there is music to my ears, I understood that the background for all schools, across schools, has been particularly difficult for music. And in fact, that there's been cutbacks, severe cutbacks in the music service, and so it seems to me that that's something that's got to be addressed, and to say that, oh yes, music is great and it really helps, these people. What about the rest of us? So I think that's a question for perhaps this forum on another day.
Yeah.
About music, but I think it's it's timely.
Rob, just on that point, you make a very pertinent point. I think just to reiterate that, and we'll take it outside, and maybe we can answer it separately, because music therapy for our ALN, SEN, etc. children is vitally important, and the evidence shows that they really do enjoy it and engage with it, etc. I think music service outside of that, our orchestras, etc., and our lessons are something that we can pick up. And I'll just make a note of it, so I'll pick it up outside of this meeting, because it goes in a different sort of context of educational delivery outside of ALN. But I'll pick that up, Rob.
Yes, and my other question is about the table that's on page 28, ALN, the 6 most prevalent types, and there's a comment that says above it, that says that the table shows the overall number of pupils with identified needs has increased, particularly pupils with ASD. Well, when I look at that table, 5 years with a different, each year with a different colour, I see that in SLCD, it's sort of a much of a muchness over the 5 years, and speech, language, and communication difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
So with MLD, mild learning difficulties, on the other hand, this was quite low, perhaps the first 2 years of the COVID years, but then it shoots up. So I'm not sure that saying that there's there's perhaps more in there than the table suggests about what the sort of needs are. I think it is interesting to keep a very close eye on this, because once again, this is not a Merthyr Tydfil alone difficulty, problem, or challenge perhaps, but that also we need to make sure we don't take our eye off that ball in the bigger game. As well.
Did you want officers to respond to the moderate learning difficulties and why perhaps that peaked, Rob? What may help you with that? Let me just give you a little bit of background. Is over the last sort of 2 years of scrutiny, we have looked at a number of different behavioural concerns, issues, etc. And we've even had the health authority in to help us because of the issue that we've had where we've had children presented to us from early years into primary, etc., with, a great deal of language difficulties, behaviour difficulties, toileting difficulties, etc. And this has really peaked post-COVID as well, And I know that we're asked to sort of, COVID has come and gone type of thing, but it's the legacy or the tsunami, if you like, that we're still facing because of the difficulties we had. And those children that were born around then and coming into primary, we are finding that they're presented to us with reading, writing, language difficulties, and as I said, even some toileting difficulties as well. But I don't know if officers want to add to any of that as far as some of the increases that we've seen in sort of 23, 24 onwards.
Yeah, if you look at particularly the last 3 years, I think everybody will be aware of the increase in ASD. That's borne out by the consideration of placement at the more complex end, but also in terms of what our schools are having to manage. I think interestingly, if you look at the first column as well, over the last 3 years, the last 4 years, that increase around behaviour is definitely something that schools are highlighting. This probably doesn't present you with any kind of new revelations of information, but it just confirms really where where the areas of focus are for us, and that is particularly, as I said in the report, around ASD, because it is increasing.
Okay. Rob, did you want to add anything to that, or should I just check if there are any other questions?
Well, just for sort of clarification. So, is this partly not ready for school sort of syndrome, which reflects something, or is the autistic spectrum disorder, is that not part of a far wider societal trend? In other words, it's happening in a lot of places.
It's the latter. We're seeing across the board increase in diagnosis of ASD. This information comes from the schools in terms of how they record the needs of the pupils, and it just, I mean, it's self-explanatory to a certain extent, the increase that we're seeing around ASD.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to jump in and ask one if that's okay. Gareth, you mentioned obviously an internal audit we had in 2024. As I'm sure you know, a colleague of ours, a previous colleague of ours, Lawrence, was really passionate about ALN and had specific questions around our ALN panels, etc. And whilst we had that internal audit in 2024, and we've got some positive outcomes from that, as you've noted as well, I think he was concerned, and I'm bringing it up on his behalf, even though he's not with us anymore, but he was so passionate about it, bless him. I think he was concerned about the total number of children on existing or pending panels, and then those being quite high significant numbers, but when we're having the panels, the numbers didn't seem to equate. So I haven't got his narrative in front of me specifically, but I think, if we could just give some reassurance that our panels are regularly happening and we're endeavouring to, address those children that are being presented or referred or deferred to us.
Yes.
No problem.
No, I'll start. Absolutely, to assure that is the case. Sarah has come into the role of ALM manager. Jill retired prior to Christmas, and Sarah took up post. She comes from significant background, particularly around in Cardiff and in Bristol, around processes, policy and practice and those kind of things, which is a great, there's loads of other experience as well.
Just to note a few.
Exactly, but particularly to address that comment,
right,
that there's currently a review of all those things going on,
right,
partly so that Sarah is fully aware, I mean, you could be saying this, but so that she's fully aware of what our systems are and where there may be gaps or improvements could be made. Or to ensure better consistency. But in terms of assuring scrutiny members, absolutely, that there's a watching brief on a weekly basis, every panel, because panel is weekly, that those things are taken into account.
And then I think just looking at the future, this is probably one of the biggest areas that we work on, isn't it, within the local authority? We saw that, Gareth, with the families that got in touch with us as well. And undoubtedly, similar to our other forward work programmes, there are certain elements of education that we pick up again in the future. So I've just noted that, Gav, that, this is ever evolving. You just mentioned regarding Rob's question, that we have more children presenting now because of diagnosis, etc. So it's making sure that support is in place for them. And as Cabinet Member has already alluded to, making sure that what funding is available is put in the right place as well to support them. So just for my scrutiny colleagues, it's just to reiterate, as part of our forward work programme as we move into the next cycle, this is something that we'll pick up on again, because it's such a big subject area, and for the local authority, and making sure that, when you mentioned, Gareth, clear, transparent communication, so everybody's in the loop, is us picking up on that in the future as well, to make sure that we are doing what's been asked of us for those parents and carers and grandparents alike as well. So not necessarily a question, but I just wanted to reiterate that it's not, we can answer everything today, it's ongoing.
And we would welcome that,
work,
but whether that's scrutiny or through workshop or however. You want to
okay, thanks, Gav. I can see that.
Could we have a workshop. Obviously, our
Yeah,
visit to Tydfil was
really good, wasn't it?
useful.
Yeah. I'll just note that down, and we'll continue discussions, and then we'll pick up on sort of forward actions, if that's okay. So I'll just bring Michelle in, and then Morgan, did you want to ask a question? So Michelle?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a question in regards to the LRBs. Obviously, over the last couple of years, lots of these LRBs now are being implemented into schools. So do you think that over the next couple of years, we're going to see more LRBs in the schools that haven't got them? Or do you think that there's a need to create like an LRB school, which I believe they do have in England and places like that? I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I'm not aware.
You know, what do they do in Bristol?
Bring her in a minute. I'm not aware of LRB schools. In terms of the LRBs that we have at the minute, we've done some consolidation work. So we had LRBs that were in Key Stage 2 with others in Foundation, and so they would transition. Part of that transition then was changing of school. So we've realigned some of that. So, for example, Coed Yddewen's got a Foundation and Key Stage 2 so that pupils can flow through. Where there is capacity, that's a key issue for us in terms of where is the capacity to establish a class. There may be some schools that have an LRB at the moment where we as part of our review process that we may identify actually there's capacity there with looking at the future numbers in the school on roll, that's an option. But equally, it might be that actually it would be a school, 2 schools, 3, whatever it is, that haven't had an LRB at that point that would then host one. But we're in, like I said in the report, we're in the process of kind of looking at that information, both at primary and at secondary. The pressures at secondary are different to the pressures at primary in terms of the building work that's going on in 2 of our schools and other arrangements. But we recognise that there's a need to explore additional capacity, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, Michelle?
In terms of the LRB school, Sarah, do you have any view on that?
I wonder what you mean. So there are some centres that are based on an LRB model that are satellite pods sometimes. So in Bristol, certainly they had some, they were called pods actually, but satellite pods from special schools, but operated more as an LRB under the special school remit. And Cardiff has the Marion Centre, which is also, so it's on a mainstream school site and operates under that school kind of function, but those learners there have quite complex needs and don't have access to mainstream. So it's an LRB model, but with a slightly different remit, if that makes sense. Yeah. So maybe it's some of those types of models that you're thinking of.
Yeah, I had a meeting with the head of Park Lane in Aberdeen, and he was telling me that he'd been on a visit to basically like an LRB school, but I think it was like in London, not London, England somewhere. But maybe that's just for the future anyway. My other question was just like in regards to how are we coping with the staffing of the LRBs and the one-to-one positions, because obviously that's how we're kind of coping at the moment, I think, is utilising one-to-one LSAs for the children with needs. How are we coping with managing that, and what kind of training are these staff getting to make sure the children are getting the support that they need in mainstream settings? And you know, that's really my thought process on this at the moment.
Michelle, is that within staff within LRBs?
Yeah.
Or
if the children are, have been assigned, I don't know, money for a one-to-one support, how are the ALN team managing with the demands really for the staff?
Yeah. Can I bring Bron in on that one?
Yeah, please do, yeah.
Bron has quite a lot of involvement in the training side because a lot of the training flows out from the Educational Psychology Service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hi everyone. Shall I do the training bit and you do the funding bit, Gavin? Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the 2 main things that spring to mind, Michelle, in terms of training for the LSAs is PBS and ELSA. So the PBS is the positive behaviour support or positive behaviour strategies. That historically, some of you may know Vicky Jefferson has done that. So that manages all about understanding behaviours, understanding behaviours as communication, and how staff members can, whoever they are, whether they're teachers or LSAs, can respond to that and work sort of proactively on that. So that's one bit of training that's available for LSAs and all school staff, and that's on a rolling programme. So schools just train up for that. There's also good practice forums that go alongside that, which are really, really important, because as lots of you know, if you do one-off training, everyone's really enthusiastic about it, and then they potter off to their jobs, and sometimes it sort of drifts a bit. But there's good practice forums that happen with that. And then similar to that, but more around emotional literacy, would be the ELSA training programme that LSAs, schools can sign up LSAs for, and that's 6-day training run by educational psychologists across the whole of Central South, basically, so Cardiff, the Vale, Bridgend. There's a group of us who train LSAs to be ELSAs. And then there's also MELSA training, which is mediating learning, which is more the learning side of it. So you've got the behaviour, emotional literacy, and then the learning side would be MELSA. So all schools are given that option to attend training. However, obviously, if I speak plainly, they've got to have the money and the time for them to attend that, which is obviously a big thing. A lot of the time we have really wonderful people in the schools who are willing and able, but finding them the time to be able to leave schools to do training is obviously tricky sometimes. All three that I've just covered all involve supervision after training, which again I'm really, really passionate about. So they get the opportunity to come in and meet with educational psychologists who give supervision to make sure that their skills are up to date and that they can bring cases and talk through them. Any school staff member can also phone the educational psychology support line if they've got something tricky that they want to discuss. So LSA is included in that. They can bring cases to group consultation with the EPs, where again they bring a tricky case, and alongside peers facilitated by the EP, they can talk through cases. So there's lots of training / support out there. There's trauma informed whole school approaches stuff as well. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into. There's plenty out there, but it would be remiss of me not to say that obviously that involves them spending time outside the classroom going on training.
Okay, thanks, Bronwyn.
Thank you.
Dad, did you want to add to any of that about any of the staffing resources?
Yeah, just in terms of the LRBs specifically, we have a service level agreement with Greenfield Special School, and they provide an outreach service to our LRB staff with regular meetings, and it also provides a peer opportunity across the LRBs to get together for sharing of practice, to look at consistency of approach and those kind of things. We've also, in terms of managing some of the complexity sometimes that occurs when staff move or leave, we've engaged with 2 LRBs where there's a member of Greenfield staff that's actually leading in that LRB. So we've got one secondary LRB, one primary LRB, where actually the member of staff that's leading that LRB is also then being supported by Greenfield because they're the school. And that has real advantages as well in terms of disseminating and sharing some of that special school practice into the LRBs as well.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of our school support staff, especially for their hard work. They deal with the most difficult, the most complex children, and they get paid the least. And I just think that they are absolutely amazing, and our schools couldn't function without them. And I just wanted to put on record, really, probably on behalf of us all, how grateful we all need to be for their dedication and their hard work. This training is fantastic for them, especially, the positive behavioural side of things, the reverse psychology of how a lot of these children are looking for attention, but they're playing up. So instead of playing up, we try to get them to behave in a good way, and then encourage them, give them lots of praise and things like that. So this training is fantastic, but yeah, I just think that they deserve, you know, so much more money than what they get. They put up with a lot, and I just wanted to thank them. Thank you, Chair.
Michelle, you've said it on behalf of everybody, including the officers. I'm sure you know we all recognise that and echo those comments that you've just made there as well. And I think undoubtedly that does need some sort of review. It isn't for us to review, but you know, some sort of review because of the support, and that came clearly to us, Gareth, didn't it, when we met a lot of the families out there, just how grateful they are to the teams, the support their children and grandchildren alike as well. Thank you. Morgan, I'll come to you, Morgan. Sorry, I keep on saying Morgan because I'm not Wednesday. I keep saying Morgan instead of Morgan. Morgan and then Paul. I haven't said that. Yeah, that's what she said. I'm joking. It's the Valley's going to be. I do apologise. Morgan.
It was so helpful, Gavin, when you shared the where we sat on the attendance side within that league table with regards to ALN. In terms of case numbers per capita, so we understand where we compare, is there any sort of data that's been produced? Just wondering.
Not from Welsh Government, no, and therefore we don't have access to that.
No, that's fine. That's fine then. On regards, the one thing that drew my attention, with ASD, it was flat. These are cases reported from the schools in our 22. In our local authority.
Are you on 3.4?
3.4, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were flat pretty much at just over 200, and then we kind of stepped up over 2 years to just over 300, yeah?
So it's not cases, it's where schools are identifying primary needs. There's just a...
So those might be multiple needs within one, they might not be people.
Or they may just be, it's people as ASD, but it's managing and there's no requirement for sort of additional support.
Well, that's fine. So that graph there, that data, again, are we able to know how we fare with our children in Merthyr in terms of the numbers in ASD versus how other local authorities are faring with numbers of cases? Is that something that we can get access to see if there's any underlying reason, any cause locally that we can analyse and try and circumvent?
I think it's anecdotal information that we have from other local authorities that the trends are the same.
Yeah.
I've got the exact same table for a neighbouring local authority because we talked about it, thought that'll be good. It's the same pattern.
Is there any way of us accessing that? And when we say anecdotal, I think what you're saying is that they've shared, or you've seen outside of their information like this, they did like this. Is there any way of us collating that so that we can see if there is anything peculiar to the children in Merthyr Tydfil
I can share it.
Causing things to spike?
Yeah, because certainly, it was RCT and it's in their scrutiny report as well. So they were going through a similar process.
Yeah, so I suppose what I'm asking is there any way of us gathering this information that we have from the 22 so that we can see if there is any worrying underlying trend for our children, or if it's just purely generic, which it might be. I would assume there would be some kind of regional variation, but if going from just over 200 to just over 300 in a fairly steep change, is there anything that we can see this underlying to that? That's all I'm asking. Versus if it's not happening in Monmouth, or if it's not happening at all in.
That's a good point. This information will feed into PLASC, which will feed into Welsh Government, so we can ask Welsh.
Grab that. That would be great. If we can see that would be great.
And I think it's a good point. And I think if we just hold our thought as well, because if we do have a workshop in the future and we think about, because I was noting down, okay, well, what do we want to do in our workshop? You know what I mean? It's like that I'll just make a note of that, Jane, if we can, because that could be something that we look at, Morgan, within the body. That's something we could look at and chat about and see if there's some differences and what our health colleagues are saying around that as well, So yeah, we'll pause that thought, talk about the workshop and that as to what we want to get from it. Sarah, sorry.
I was just going to add about health colleagues, because obviously that number doesn't incorporate the huge number on waiting lists who would be waiting perhaps for a possible diagnosis. Some of the increase might be because that's been noted by health, obviously, the long waiting list.
It could be success at processing it, absolutely. And this is, we just need to understand it. That's
right. And it's useful to know that then as well.
Gavin and I were in a meeting prior to this where we were actually talking about that very thing, and there was a presentation on
health for sharing how they've reduced their waiting list, and that will absolutely impact upon
Yeah.
And also it's worth reflecting, I think, that kind of the areas of need don't reflect the full primary areas of need in the new code. So schools are having to navigate two systems currently, and I know Welsh Government are also, reviewing that currently. So.
Yeah, and that's why I think our workshop, etc., needs to be timely, not the cart before the horse. So I think we need to think about specific. Yeah, exactly, definitely. Our smart acronym we shall use for you. I promise you, I'll make a note of that. And Paul.
Gav, I just want to come back to a comment you made earlier on about the possibility of additional LRBs. And obviously, I think we all know there's a big need for additional LRBs, but potentially putting them in schools that haven't already got them. Is there any possibility of schools that haven't got them refusing to have them?
I'll defer to the director of education.
That was a very big. Take a breath, then, Gavin.
I'll take it back. I think if a school is what were your words? Just refusing to take.
Well, if they haven't got them and you approach them and say, "Will you accept that?" Can they refuse?
The question of whether they could refuse or not would sit with the director. The question for me would be, if you look at the schools that we've got LRBs, they don't sit in a separate building. They seek to integrate those pupils into the school. Yeah. They own that LRB, and so for me it comes down to the inclusive nature of it.
No, I put a caveat on that. Sorry, because I think everybody realises schools that's got LRBs at the moment, they're potentially the biggest headache for their teachers that the school is possibly going to face. One of them. So obviously, head teachers told.
It's a commitment for sure.
It's a massive headache. Yeah. It probably takes up a lot of time for head teachers, and so if a school hasn't got them, would they really want to take on that headache?
We have got head teachers that would take it on, yes. And obviously, it would.
That's the question I'm asking.
I would. We would go to those head teachers that we know would actually be willing to take, would welcome them first, and then.
So if you got to that stage where all the ones that's welcome them have had them, could they be enforced to have them in schools, which they don't want them in?
If there's surplus place if there are surplus spaces within the schools, we as a local authority would be able to direct use of that space. Not something that I would ever want to do, Paul. But we can direct use of that space.
It's an interesting question. I think our schools are seek to be inclusive and have welcomed, certainly since I've been here for a bit years, and we've established I think 3 extra LRBs in that time, and we've moved 1 LRB. The head teachers that I've been involved with have been nothing but I'm just trying to think of the right words: gracious, welcoming, accommodating, recognising the benefit of having an LRB. Yes, recognising the challenges that come with it, and they are significant sometimes, but also, from my point of view, I've not had anything but positivity from them.
Well, we put extra in; they welcomed those.
Yeah, and when we increased, we were looking at our complex LRBs, and we saw that there was a need for additional, and they could be accommodated. Head teachers were willing to move from 8 to 10 with an additional member of staff just to support. I've got no issues with any of our LRBs or any of the head teachers. Certainly from my.
I wouldn't say it's an issue. Yeah. I would say it's a massive headache. It's one of the biggest challenges that the school will face is dealing with LRB classes. Hands down.
And the complexity of it, and the complexity, resource, etc.
And the staffing issues, everything that goes with it. That's the reason why I asked, because if you was going to say to a school that hasn't got an LRB now, we are put in the school, could they refuse? That was my question.
Sarah, before I bring you in, Bronwyn, I've noticed, has got her hand up, so I'll bring Bronwyn in if that's okay, and then I'll bring you in, Sarah.
Thank you. It's only a really quick side point on that occurred to me, is that schools that don't have LRBs and schools that do have LRBs quite often set up their own provision for learners who are a little bit more needy. So I think that's worth bearing in mind as well. So even if they're not asked to or have got LRBs, you will all, I'm sure, when you're in your journeys around schools, have come across the Cwtch, the Haven, the Haven, all the different names that they all have for their own provision, that they recognise that they've got learners who sometimes need a bit of time not within a mainstream classroom, and they provide them for them. So I think that's just an interesting side point to that on a positive note, I guess.
Yeah, and then Sarah coming on those points, I guess, as well. And I think for me, it's that dialogue with the head teachers, because there could be a reluctance, but it's understanding
not just the head teachers. I think it's head teachers and chair and governing bodies.
Yeah, to understand. Yeah, exactly. And I think as local authority and officers, you would inevitably have those conversations, because it's like the point that Bronwen made, is that there's an element of that within all of our schools already. However, that's whatever it's called, etc. But there's an element of it slightly different to what you're saying, Paul, which is the LRB bit. Sarah, sorry.
I was going to say something similar to Bron, but also just obviously I'm still fairly new, so I'm still getting to know all of the schools and head teachers and LRBs. But over the past week, I've had two head teachers who do have existing LRBs who contacted me and said they'd be more than willing to have another, and that they see it as a really positive thing in their schools. So I was just echoing that positivity, despite the challenges.
Thank you. I can't see any other hands up. I think just to open it up then to any other observations or comments, what I would like to say is the point that Michelle made about one of the LRBs in England. If you can recall at some point and let us know, Michelle, that may be a shorter journey than Australia to go and see some best practice. So let us know, Michelle, if you do recall it, just so that be interesting for all of us as scrutiny members as well to have a look at. And so the cabinet member and I can go and have a little visit, can't we, Kat, and see. Colleagues, I've noted a number of different things there for us as far as the recommendations are concerned, but does anybody have any other observations or comments they wish to make? No? Okay, so again, we've gone through the report. The purpose of the report is to be discussed and noted, and for us to consider any aspects, other aspects that we wish to scrutinise. As I said, this is, ever evolving, isn't it? It goes back to the points that we've made about how those numbers, significantly increased from that 100 quartile, that 200 to 300, etc. And how did the moderate jump, and also, as we evolve and move into more diagnosis, increased waiting lists, etc. It's something that we have to revisit. So as a scrutiny, there are certain elements or agendas that we pick up on our annual cycle anyway, and this will certainly be one. Twofold. One, we'll pick it up again when we look at the forward work programme for 26-27, which we'll be doing in a couple of weeks. And secondly, we'll have a look at a workshop or even a site visit. I'll see how logistically that may work, because we have to remember that we don't want to put the fear into any of our young pupils, bless them, with all committee members turning up to an LRB, but there may be an opportunity to do it, because there's nothing better than what Rob said of our visit to the PRU is seeing that actually in situ, isn't it? So we'll pick that up, and I think I promise officers we will be smart in what we're asking for, and we've already picked up a couple of things today that we can, the anecdotal stuff, the RCT, the English comparison, etc., and we'll be specific on what we want to look at. Okay, Rob?
Can I just confirm that Morgan's request for more data from
and I'm just
authorities?
No, absolutely, and I'm just wondering whether we do that in the body of a workshop discussion or we do that separately. So we've noted it, and I'll just pick up with Gav and the team, when it's best to do that, and pick it up really as far as the annual cycle is concerned.
We'll make the request from Welsh Government.
Yeah.
If they have it and release it, we'll share it straight away, because I think the more you all know, the better.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah, Bronwen. Thank you ever so much. You are more than welcome to leave us now on that particular subject area. We really do appreciate your contribution. I've noticed the Sue and Gatlin are leaving us, and Anna, they're all running off. Okay, should have stayed for the forward work programme. Cabinet members leaving as well. You say yes.
Dismissed.
You dismissed. Yes. Okay, no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. Thank you.
Instance,
yes.
Aborigines
Thank you.
to go to school.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, we shall.
You've got to be inclusive, man.
Yes, yes.
Oh, it's their right not to go to school.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah, are you okay for me to carry on? Because I'm just conscious of the time as well. Okay, thank you. Okay. Jim, I've got the giggles. Agenda item number 8. Sorry, it's just something just occurred to me then with Rob running after Sue. Right, okay. Agenda item number 8. Apologies, my voice is gone. I've got a bit of a croaky voice. Is the Forward Work programme. So for our new co-opted members as well, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be sitting down with a cabinet member, taking on board feedback, and I reflect back on the last year. And when I say the last year, our annual cycle goes from May to May, just to explain. And then we'll set in place our next Forward Work programme, which will commence from May 2026 into May 2027. And I'll pick up on items that we've discussed, ALN being one of those, and we'll make sure that we revisit that, etc. We do annually also revisit attendance because it's part of our statutory obligation as an educational local authority education service as well. So just to remind you though, when we're talking about the Forward Work Plan, that those of you who can make it, we do have a workshop on the 25th of March, which was rescheduled, and rescheduled? Yeah. Committee thing, where we're talking about the planning of school places and also service risks, and that followed on from our risk workshop. That will be back in this committee room at 4 p.m. on that day if you can meet us. More information to follow on that. And our next scrutiny meeting will be on Monday the 20th of April, and that's where we're talking about Welsh language and WESP. WESP is the Welsh Education Strategic Plan, so we'll be talking about that during that scrutiny meeting as well. Okay, so as far as today's meeting is concerned and talking about adding value, etc., I think there's a lot for us to digest. There's a lot of notes that we've made from attendance and ALN for us to pick up as part of our Forward Work Plan. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. We'll get that out to you as soon as possible. Don't know if anybody's got any comments on that particular agenda item at the moment, or you okay? And MT Boyth as well. Please don't shout to me, but we can pick up on. You do too much good work, you see, when it comes to young people, so we'll pick up on that as well. Agenda item number 9 is scrutiny referrals. I did have a scrutiny referral, and that was regarding ALN from a member of the public, and I met with the cabinet member on that ALN referral. It was already part of our Forward Work programmes, we had it on there, but I just wanted to make sure that we were addressing some of those concerns from some of the parents, carers and grandparents as well. And as I said, it is, you know, something that is continuous. So we'll keep on picking up on it as well and make sure that we are open and transparent and communicating. And the young lady who was leading the silent protest, I'm in communication with, so I'll just make sure that, you know, we're meeting their expectations as well and what they were highlighting to us. Agenda item number 10 is feedback on any scrutiny activities. Well, we don't have any feedback at the moment because we haven't had any recent activities. And last but not least is agenda item number 11, any other business deemed urgent by myself. I have none. So therefore, diolch yn fawr. I will bring the meeting to a like a Scot. He's tickled with my use of Welsh language. I'm trying my incidental Welsh more, you see, Scott. Diolch, thank you. Diolch eto. So thank you ever so much for joining us today. I call the meeting to a close, and I shall see you all very soon. Thank you. Michelle, I shall see you in 20 minutes. Clive, I'll see you in 20 minutes.
Yes, it's to race back home.
Yes, I know. I forgot to go to another meeting at 6. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.